Hey, it's summer. Do you want to come on down to the pub and wear our cool new on-trend leopard print tops that we've made and celebrate how good we are at sewing?
Nah.
Hard pass. Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is Kate and this is Ripper Seams. So before I go any further, I would like to give a very big welcome to all the new subscribers that have joined in the past week. It's absolutely awesome having you here, so welcome along to the Ripper Seams party. For those of you playing along at home and want to know what I'm wearing this week, then this of course is my Songbird kimono cardigan, which I talked about 2 videos ago. The one where it says try hard things. So if you would like to know more about how I made this one, then go and click on one of these links hovering around here, or there is a link in the description below. I absolutely love this cardigan. I'm going to be wearing this until this is falling apart at the seams, which will be a long time because I French themed the living daylights out of this thing. Right, well, let's get stuck into this week's video. Boy, is it a doozy. Well, it is the summer of 2024. At least I think it's summer. Not 100% sure about that, but the calendar is telling me it is, so let's go with it being summer 2024. I have observed that this summer 2 very clear fashion trends have emerged or even continued. So the first of that is the ongoing celebration of the Copenhagen blouse. So this is the peasant blouse, which has got the tie fronts, a bit of a billowy sleeve and a bit of a peplum shape going on as well. Now the Copenhagen top is a hangover from last year, but it's still gaining momentum and very much still in fashion this summer. Every single shop seems to be selling one version or another. Plus, it has also hit our sewing community. So yeah, heaps and heaps of patterns to choose from. And to be fair, the leopard print hasn't really gone away. It's always been there rumbling under the surface. But right now, this summer, it is definitely having a moment. Now, when it comes to fashion, I'm definitely not a fashionista. I do not follow the trends. I very much beat my own drum when it comes to wearing clothes. Most of my style is kind of a mix between bohemian and rock chic with a bit of retro thrown in. That tends to be what I gravitate to. So normally leopard print is something I leave alone. The only thing I've ever owned in leopard print ever has been my Converse or my Vans, and that's it. Now, I think so many people look wonderful in leopard print. Normally I stay away from it, but in my head I feel as if I'm going to end up looking like Peggy from Married with Children or Scary Spice. And just between you and me, I prefer to look like Ginger Spice. Now, the same thing happens with the Copenhagen blouse. I've kind of admired this look from afar. I think it looks really great on other people. I've avoided it for 2 very clear reasons. One of them is very much because sometimes it's accompanied with a very large collar, something I definitely don't think is going to suit me. The second thing is I'm not a fan of the open gap in between where the ties go. So for me, most of the patterns I've seen so far, even the stuff in the shops, was just something which I was going to avoid. That is, of course, until the start of summer when Fabric Godmother brought out the Fleur blouse and dress, and Tilly and the Buttons brought out the Nell blouse and dress. 2 very similar patterns, but also equally their own individual looks. Now, I love both of them, and I couldn't figure out which elements of each I preferred over the other, so of course I ended up buying both of them. Now, at the time, I did not have leopard print in mind when I was going to make them. I was initially going to look for some broderie anglaise or some sort of nice cotton print. That is until I went and had a little sticky beak on the Ganni website, because I do know that Ganni has definitely been a standout option for this type of blouse. So when I was going on their website, they have all sorts of different colors, but then this one appeared, and this is the Copenhagen style blouse, but in a leopard print. And this is the one that I wanted to make. So with this in mind, it kind of sealed my fate as to which pattern I was going to try out first, and that is the Fleur by Fabric Godmother. So that's one make I had in my plans for leopard print. And was that enough leopard print for me? Absolutely no, because before all this was decided, I had also planned and cut out a Style Arc pattern, which is the Marilyn Dress. Now this looks like it's one of the older designs from Style Arc, because you do have to buy it as a single size, and the only PDF option is to print at home, print at home, print at home, print at home. So for me, I printed it out on A4 and stuck it all together. Now originally I was trying to squeeze in making this dress the last week before heading out on our family holiday to Australia, because I thought it would be a lovely A-line, flowy, airy dress to wear in the hot weather in Brisbane. I really, really, really wanted to make this in white linen, but I thought it might be a bit see-through, so I ended up buying some really nice cinnamon colored linen. Of course, I absolutely ran out of time and didn't end up making it, but I had the pattern all printed out, ready to go, and I thought I'll make it for summer this year. So this dress has been on my agenda to make for months, and I finally got around doing it. But I decided I wanted to do it in this lovely flowy dead stock crepes, which is this one here. So look at me, having never worn a leopard print before in my life. Here I am making 2 outfits for summer this year. So for this video, I'm going to take you through both makes. One of them is the Fleur dress by Fabric Godmother, and the second is the Marilyn dress by Style Arc. I, of course, will show you my finished makes and give you my ratings at the end. Now, I can tell you now, one of these was an absolute success, and the other was a massive, huge disaster. So let's find out which is which. So first up is the Fleur pattern by Fabric Godmother. I, of course, have decided to make the blouse version, which has been absolutely hugely popular ever since this pattern came out, and for good reason. So the Fleur pattern has been marked for beginners, nothing tricky when it comes to closures on here. Making these ties are pretty straightforward, but I don't recommend this for absolute beginners because there is a whole heap of gathering that you need to do in the front section here, as well as these balloon sleeves. And I think there are definitely easier sleeves to try out first before tackling this one. In saying that, there is the sleeveless version. So if you do want to tackle this one very early in your sewing journey, I do recommend maybe making it without the sleeves first, maybe trying something with sleeves in a slightly simpler pattern, and then come back and try this one for sure. Now the pattern is also very size inclusive, running from a size 6 right up to a size 30, and it's also drafted for both a B and a D cup as well, so there's definitely a lot of flexibility in here. For your reference, I am a 37.5 bust measurement, I am a 32 waist and a 44 hip. So based on the very useful advice contained within these instructions, I decided to make the size 12 with the B cup measurement. And as I mentioned before, I am 5'3", but this pattern has been drafted for someone who is 5'6". So as a result, I ended up taking out 1.5 inches from both the torso and the sleeve to make sure that this top was going to fit me perfectly. So with the pattern side of things sorted, it was time to locate the fabric, and I decided to make it in this lovely cotton poplin, which is from Rose and Hubble. Now there are so many different leopard print options out there, it is absolutely endless. Rose and Hubble do have this in a more orangey tone, but I felt as if this snow leopard vibe was definitely for me. So here we go, fabric choice. Very happy with it, and it was time to get going. Now overall, this top was an absolute joy to make. The instructions were very clear and easy to understand, and lots of useful photos to help you along the way. So I took advantage of my fabric glue pen to help me get really nice, crispy, even ties for the front. And rather than deploy a simple stay stitch around the neckline and the armholes, I decided to use my favorite violin bias tape just to make sure I had really nice, crisp, clean edges here. I'm also happy to say that I managed to deploy a few French seams in here as well, so I've done that on the shoulder seams as well as the side seams. So at the end of day one of this make, I really loved where this was headed. Trying it on, I thought this was absolutely great. So day 2 of this make, I dedicated to installing the lovely balloon sleeves, and these went in like an absolute dream. Once again, the instructions were really, really clear, and I loved how they turned out. And then finally, on the 3rd day of this make, it was all about that peplum, and there is a lot of gathering to be done here. What I like about this pattern is the really thoughtful instructions where you do not do any gathering where the peplum meets the placket. And this is to ensure there's no like excess ruffle happening around the front, which I think is a really, really nice detail to include. So after all that gathering and inserting that peplum and giving it a good press, I had finally finished my very first Fleur blouse. So let's see how it turned out by taking it for a spin on the backyard catwalk. So here is my lovely Fleur blouse by Fabric Godmother, and I absolutely love it. If you haven't figured out already, this is definitely the win of the 2 items I'm talking about in this video. So peplum is really, really sweet, and those ties are just spot on, exactly what I wanted to get that real Copenhagen blouse look. Overall, I think I did the right thing by picking the size 12 and also shortening the torso and the sleeves by 1.5 inches to fit my shortness. So yeah, I think the peplum looks quite nice. I was a bit worried about whether it would suit my pear shape, but I think it's cute. I think it's definitely a good gateway item to get me into wearing more animal print in future. So yeah, love it. So let's give it some Ripper Seams ratings then, shall we? So let's start with brain friendliness. So I will give this pattern a 5 out of 5 for brain friendliness. Being from an independent pattern company, these instructions hold your hand all the way from start to finish. And there are also really useful photographs in there as well, which you can refer to. As well as that, there is really useful information in there to help you pick the right size for your body shape, as well as lots of other useful tips to set you up for success. So yeah, definitely 5 out of 5 for brain friendliness. Now for fit, I'm also going to give this a 5 out of 5. As I mentioned earlier, I did choose to shorten both the torso and the sleeves of this garment by 1.5 inches, which I think was definitely spot on for me. I had no fit issues with this whatsoever. I'm going to give it 4 out of 5 lovable otters. Now I'm taking off an otter just purely for the fact that that peplum is just going to sit at the back of my mind as maybe not being the best choice for my body shape. Please don't take the fact that I haven't given it 5 out of 5 otters to think that this is a bad pattern. I'd imagine on any other body shape that this is probably going to look amazing, but for me personally, I think I need to play around with that peplum a bit more. If I was going to make this again, I will take a little bit of that fullness out, or maybe make it in a slightly flowier fabric. Now a completely different option for me to consider is perhaps taking that fabric and trying out the Nell blouse, which is by Telly and the Buttons, which I mentioned at the start of the video. They have a version in that pattern which is a straight torso without the peplum. Now I think that will probably suit me better, and in hindsight I probably should have realized that earlier, but I was probably a little bit blinded by that lovely version on the Ganni website, so I should really listen to my gut feeling going forward. So that is exactly what I'm going to do. So I have more of this fabric winging its way to me, and I'm going to make up that Nell dress in exactly the same fabric. So let me know in the comments if you're interested in seeing a compare and contrast between the two tops. I can definitely share that in one of my future videos. So that is my review of making the Fleur top, which on most accounts was a great success. Now that just leaves me with the Marilyn Dress by Stylark, which, as we all know, there is a disaster coming, and this is it. So the Marilyn Dress by Stylark, it seems to be one of their older patterns. You do have to go searching quite a long way through their extensive pattern archives to find it, but this one really stood out to me, primarily because I really like the A-line shape of it, but also some really fancy, nice sleeves. Now for me, this looked very, very elegant and stylish, just something to elevate your look when you're out and about in warmer weather. I also like the fact that it was just above the knee, which I think is quite flattering on my body shape. Now this is rated as being a medium difficulty pattern, so the actual dress itself is quite simple, and I think the only reason why I think it's been rated a medium instead of a beginner pattern is purely down to the sleeve construction, which on first glance does seem a little bit mystifying, which doesn't help because this is one of those Stylark patterns where the instructions are quite simplified. There is definitely a level of implied knowledge as you make your way through these instructions. Now this is actually my 6th Stylark pattern which I have actually sewn up. Say that 10 times fast. My first 5 have been absolute winners, so I absolutely assumed that this was going to be the same. By all accounts, this looked like a really easy sew. In fact, the body of the dress is almost identical to what you make up for both the Hope dress as well as the Harmony and Effie tops which I've made. They all have bust darts as well as a small slit at the back neckline which is closed off with a rouleau loop buttonhole. So the sizes for this pattern run from a size 4 right through to a size 30, so once again a really nice inclusive size range. For me, once again, based on the measurements, I've actually sewn up a size 14, which is also consistent with my other style garments, so I knew that this would probably be the best fit. As you can see by the pattern image, it does seem to be quite a nice loose fitting garment, but still that nice kind of body skimming A-line shape, of course with those lovely 3/4 sleeves. So fabric suggestions for the Marilyn are a silk, a rayon or a crepe. Now originally I was going to make this in a plain fabric, did get swayed by this beautiful crepe de chine from Stitch Fabrics in this lovely print here. Again, it's not your bright animal print going on. It is more subdued. It's got this lovely creamy golden background with this, I'm going to say leopard print, although it could possibly be cheetah. But for me, I class this as a leopard print. I don't know. It's kind of like a mix of both. But yeah, anyway, this is lovely and flowy. And I just thought that this would take to that dress really, really nicely. So I was a bit concerned that being a summer dress that this might show off more than I wanted if I was standing in direct sunlight. Those of you who've been watching me for a while now will know I do like a good skill builder activity, and I thought this was a good opportunity to try lining something for the first time. Now for the size 14, the pattern does say that I should need around 2.2 meters of fabric. Now, as I mentioned before, the pattern was all cut out and ready to go all the way back in December, and I had checked it. It was definitely the size I needed and was still accurate. And I took it off to a social where I planned on cutting out my fabric. At the time, I only had 2 meters of the fabric, even though the pattern called for 2.2 meters. But first of all, I normally shorten my patterns by about 1 or 2 inches. But second of all, because I was lining it, I would not have to cut out the facing pieces, which would also save me some fabric. So I thought I would be perfectly fine with 2 meters. I was not. Overall, there are 8 sleeve pieces. I was only able to cut out 3. I would have thought that this might have caused alarm bells, but no, I just jumped online to see if Stitch Fabric still had this fabric in stock, and they did, and I just ordered another 1.5 meters, no problem. So because this was a pretty straightforward garment, I thought I'd take the opportunity to do all the seams as French seams, so that's what I did both with the lining and the main fabric. So all that was going really well. So once I had created the main dress section, I whipped that on to Barbara to check her out, and yeah, it was not looking the best. I thought, that looks a bit like a tent. Husband came over and asked if we were going camping. Because of this, I went and checked my pattern pieces and confirmed that I had indeed cut out a size 14. However, I was not discouraged. I decided to trust the process, and I just thought if I got around and put the sleeves on, it would probably do something to transform this dress and make it look amazing. Spoiler alert, it is not going to look amazing. So still, my brain has not clocked that something is going terribly wrong, and I persevered. You know why? Because I wanted to try the lining. Maybe putting the lining in would bring it all together. It would be fine. It would not fit me any better. My whole entire enthusiasm for this dress was starting to go out the window, and I was kind of just ready to kind of get it over and done with, which is extremely rare for me, because normally if something's going wrong, I will probably take a few steps back and try to fix it. But for this one, I couldn't see where it is actually going wrong. Despite thinking it would probably all work out fine, I had downgraded this item from being an absolute killer make to being maybe a wearable toile. So let's return to the backyard catwalk to see how my Marilyn dress by Starlark turned out. So as you can see, this is absolutely massive. Now, throwing back to the line drawing, this was meant to be an A-line dress that finished off just above the knee. As you can see, this is almost down to my ankles. And check out those sleeves, they're super, super long, and yeah, this is a complete disaster if ever I saw one. I mean, like, how did I get to even this stage before thinking there was something completely wrong? I don't know, I was just too trusting of the process. Complete disaster. So just to clarify, this is not a pattern problem whatsoever. It is entirely down to me. Yes, hi, it's me, I'm the problem, it's me. And where that is went all the way back to December when I first printed out this pattern. So as I mentioned all the way back at the start, this is an older style art pattern which is only available by PDF. There is no A0 version, it is only print at home. So normally I am very pedantic at making sure I print out my A4 pages true to size. However, my normal pedantic self had completely failed in this instance to check on this setting when I printed out this particular pattern. And it took me all the way to this stage to realize that. So one of the first things I did was check my pattern pieces to make sure I had definitely cut out a size 14. It is definitely showing as a size 14. So I thought, what is going on here? However, this is a print at home pattern. So the next thing I thought was, have I accidentally printed this out wrong? And I thought, nope, impossible. I am always double, triple checking this particular setting when I'm printing out my pieces to make sure they are printed true to size. What I did is I went and printed out a few pages of a pattern just to find a pattern piece where I can compare. So this is the top of my back sleeve head, and I cut out another version of that, just the top section, just to make sure that they matched. And look, they don't. Look at the difference. So yes, I had definitely selected the wrong print option when I printed out this pattern. Clearly, in my crazy mad week in the run-up to going on holidays, I had forgotten to check this setting, and as a result I clicked print to fit as opposed to print to sew size. Okay, so as you can see, this is how big my sleeve head should have been, and this is what I cut out. Now, this line here is actually this one here. So all my pieces had just grown, particularly lengthways. So this arm piece is probably double the size it's meant to be, which also explains why my dress was massive and almost down to my ankles. I had completely not clocked that these pattern pieces were way too big, which is crazy because I did actually hold them up to me at one point thinking, oh, this dress is a lot bigger than I thought it would be. And I didn't clock it. This is very unlike me. I'm very concerned. So anyway, here is my learning. Public service announcement. Please make sure you quadruple check all your pattern measurements before blindly not only cutting your fabric out, but also sewing it nearly all the way to the end. I can't believe I got that far. This dress is no way wearable, and I have played with it to try and see if I can make it work. I have put a belt on it. I have thought maybe I can take some of the body out by shortening some of the pieces. It is not going to work. It is gone. There is no way back from this one. So the only way to try and recover anything from this dress is to try and harvest some of the larger pieces of fabric and maybe turning it into something smaller. Yes, there you go. A public service announcement. Please make sure you check your printer settings, because this is what happens when you don't.
Wow.
So with this one, I'm not going to give any ripper seams ratings at all. I don't think it's fair on the pattern because it is entirely down to my mistake. Am I going to make this pattern again? Absolutely. I'm going to print it out correctly. I am determined to make it because ultimately I really like the style of this dress. I do think it's really pretty. Those sleeves are just really nice and different to others that you see out and about at the moment. So I do want to give this a proper chance. Now I do have to just leave it and step away for a little bit, so it may not be this summer that I make this dress, but bet your bottom dollar in 2025 there will be a return to the Marilyn dress to be remade into hopefully something beautiful. So there you go. Those are my two attempts at sewing the summer 2024 leopard print trend. One very much a success and the other one being a complete and utter disaster. So do you have any leopard print in your sewing plans for this summer? Maybe you've made some already. I'd love to know what patterns you are trying out, so do let me know down in the comment section below. Also, I would love to know if you have made this a disastrous printer error in any of your makes. I would love to hear your stories. It'll make me feel a little bit better that I'm not alone here. This is not just me that makes this error. So if you've enjoyed this video, then please do go and give me a thumbs up down below. It just lets me know that I am doing a good job and I should make more videos just like this one. And whilst you're down there, please do consider clicking on that subscribe button if you haven't done so already, as well as clicking on that notification bell. That way you will not miss out on any of my future videos. Thank you so much for joining me here today. As always, it is a pleasure having you here. I wish you all a wonderful week of sewing, and I'll see you in the next video.